My sister got married 8 months ago and I wasn't in the wedding. Not because I wasn't invited. I was. I just didn't go. And she hasn't spoken to me since. And sometimes at 2 in the morning, I lie in bed wondering if I made the worst decision of my life or the only honest one I could have made. Here's the thing about Priya. She's 3 years older than me, and she has always been the good one. The one who called our parents every Sunday, who remembered birthdays, who cried at commercials about dogs coming home from war. I love her. I want to be really clear about that before I say anything else because I know how this is going to sound. Her husband, Dev, kissed me at her engagement party. We were in the kitchen. Everyone else was on the back porch, and I'd come in to get more ice, and he was already in there. And I thought he was going to ask me something about where the serving spoons were, and instead he just leaned in and did it. It lasted maybe 3 seconds before I pulled back and said, "What the hell?" And he looked at me with this expression I can only describe as calculated, like he'd been running the numbers on something and was waiting to see how they came out. I left the party 20 minutes later. Said I had a headache. I didn't tell Priya that night. I told myself I needed time to think, which was true, but I also needed to figure out whether I had actually understood what happened or whether I'd somehow misread it, which I hadn't. I knew I hadn't, but I kept trying to give myself an out. I told her 2 weeks later. We went for coffee and I sat across from her at this little table by the window, and I said I needed to tell her something about Dev, and I told her the whole thing. She listened without interrupting, which is unusual for her. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time, and then she said, "Did you do something to encourage it?" I didn't say anything. She said she wasn't accusing me, she just wanted to understand the full picture. She said Dev had mentioned that I'd been flirty with him in the past, and she needed to know if there was context she was missing. I told her I had never once flirted with Dev, that he had made something up to protect himself before I'd even had a chance to say anything. She nodded slowly the way people do when they've already decided something and are just waiting for you to finish talking. She called me the next day and said she'd talked to Dev, and he said the kiss was a misunderstanding, that he'd been drunk and leaned in to say something in my ear and it came across wrong. She said she believed him. She said she thought I had feelings for Dev that I wasn't being honest about, and that I needed to examine why I was doing this 2 months before her wedding. She wasn't mean about it. That almost made it worse. I tried twice more over the following weeks to get her to hear me. The second time she cried and said I was trying to ruin the most important year of her life, that she'd always known I was jealous of her, and that she needed me to either let this go or step back from the wedding entirely. I stepped back. My parents found out the week before the ceremony. I got a call from my mom at 11 at night, and she was crying and asking me how I could do this to Priya. What had happened to me? Where was the girl she raised? She said Dev's family was already there from out of town, and that everyone was asking about me, and my absence was making it about me when it should be about Priya. I said I couldn't go and watch my sister marry someone who had lied to her face and tried to lie about me and gotten away with it. My mom said I was being dramatic. She said families have to show up even when things are hard, and that I could deal with my feelings after the wedding. I didn't go. My dad hasn't called me since. My mom calls occasionally, but it's short and careful, like she's maintaining a connection she doesn't really want to examine. Priya sent me one text 6 weeks after the wedding. It said, "I hope you're happy with yourself. I've thought about whether I should have just gone. Smiled in the photos, danced at the reception, kept my mouth shut and protected the peace and told myself it wasn't my marriage, so it wasn't my problem. I've thought about it a lot. Some days I think that would have been the more loving choice. Other days I think sitting in that front row would have made me complicit in something I can't name exactly, but feel everywhere." Dev and Priya seem fine from what I can tell from her Instagram. They went to Portugal, they got a dog. She looks happy, or she looks like someone who has decided to look happy, and I'm not sure I know the difference anymore. I still haven't cried about the wedding itself. I cried about my dad not calling. I cried about my mom's voice going careful and small. I haven't cried about standing in my apartment in the dress I'd already bought, listening to it rain, knowing the ceremony was happening without me, and that